Hey, it's 2.1, Introduction to Margaret Atwood and the Handmaid's Tale. The objective is students will be able to read and analyze pages 3 to 40, chapters 1 to 7. The first must-do is watching this video to get some background knowledge about the book and our writer, Margaret Atwood. Margaret Atwood was born in 1939. She is still with us as of the fall of 2024. She's quite elderly now. But she's arguably the most prominent contemporary Canadian writer, period. She is best known for her novels, but she's also admired for other writings that she's done. Her first work was actually a book of poems. She's also written books of literary criticism and essays and short stories and all kinds of things. She has published more than 40 volumes, 40 books, her first being published in 1961, and she's still writing now. So she is prolific. She has written a lot, and she's important. People, you will hear about her again. I think we should read her because she's badass. I like this picture of her. This was taken in 2022. Random House created an unburnable copy of The Handmaid's Tale in response to increased banning of the book. It has been banned ever since it was first published in 1985 by all kinds of different people in different places. So Random House made this unburnable copy, and then they gave Margaret Atwood, so you can see her here now, quite elderly, a blowtorch, and here she is attempting to burn it. It did not burn. The next question is about the genre of the book, right? Let me tell you first that it was originally published in 1985. She wrote it in 1984. It was published in 1985. The year is important. I'll talk about that in a sec. And it has been on all kinds of bestseller book lists ever since. In 1985 it was, in 1987 when the paperback came out, it was in 1990. It was when there was a film version came out, that came out. In 2017, Hulu made the TV series with Elizabeth Moss, and then it was back on the bestseller bestseller book list. And then in 2022, when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, it was back on the bestseller list. So that is a hint for you as far as the content of the book, which we'll talk about in just a sec. Before The Handmaid's Tale, Margaret Atwood was not well known by the world. But with The Handmaid's Tale, it was a crossover book for Margaret Atwood, and she became popular, and everything changed for her. Let's talk about the genre of the book. It is considered a dystopia, and I've got a long definition here. Maybe you can write a shortened version of it. A dystopia is a futuristic imagined universe in which oppressive societal control and the illusion of a perfect society are maintained through corporate, bureaucratic, technological, moral, or totalitarian control. Dystopias, through an exaggerated worst-case scenario, make a criticism about a current trend, societal norm, or political system. And they have some key aspects that you'll find in all books in all dystopian books. Propaganda is used to control the citizens of the society. There is information, independent thought, and freedom are highly restricted. Citizens are perceived to be under constant surveillance. Citizens live in a dehumanized state. Citizens conform to uniform expectations, and the society is an illusion of a perfect utopian world. The piece about speculative fiction that I wanted to bring up is something that Margaret Atwood herself has talked about. She calls her book speculative fiction instead of science fiction. Speculative fiction is an encompassing genre. One way to define it is that it freely explores possibility and impossibility alike. Now, that is very broad, very general. And in fact, speculative fiction can be very broad. Maybe the key to understanding what it is as a genre, though, is to think about this part of the word, speculate. So the key to speculative fiction is speculation, or imagining what would happen if. So there are all kinds of different books that take the what if approach. It allows authors to examine earthly themes of love, loss, family, and morality through a fresh and fantastical lens. Margaret Atwood herself talked about the term speculative fiction because she thought it was more accurate to define The Handmaid's Tale as speculative fiction, along with some of her other dystopian novels, because science fiction to her was a genre in which things happen that are not possible today. That's a quote. Things happen that are not possible today. And in Margaret Atwood's mind, her books could happen. It's not like we don't have the technology to allow for the things that happen in The Handmaid's Tale to happen. And so she uses this term speculative fiction because we don't have spaceships and, we can't beam to another planet or anything like that in The Handmaid's Tale. It's not our world, but it's close to our world. All right, let's hear from the great writer herself as she talks about her inspiration to write The Handmaid's Tale.
Inspirations for what?
All right, so that was published in 2017 when the Hulu series came out. So it's interesting to hear her talk about what motivated her and how relevant, really, she sees the things that motivated her to write the book originally in our world now. All right, let's see if I can figure out how to skip that. Okay. The next question is, what is the setting of The Handmaid's Tale? So the setting is the United States of America in a near future or a sort of nowish time, although keep in mind she wrote it in 1984. The Handmaid's Tale envisions a white right-wing theocratic coup having taken place in the Northeast United States of the early 21st century. So an autocratic elite, alarmed by a decline in white birth rates and by the degeneration of a traditional American society, has masterminded the murder of the president and a massacre in Congress. And then they played on public fear, ignorance, and restricted access to information and money to suspend all civil rights. A frightened, confused citizenry has hunkered down to ride out the crisis, and most have submitted to the rapid imposition of many restrictions and a rigid codification of status and role in the new dystopian state of Gilead. So that is the setting. And as far as the plight of our main character, Offred, to understand her plight, you have to understand, first of all, that women are stripped of jobs and financial independence in Gilead. And they're forced into one of 8 color-coded roles. We learn about 3 of them right away in the book, so I'll just talk about those 3 right now. The first is of the wives. The wives wear blue. These are the wives of the elite, the rulers. The aunts, I think I'm going to talk about 4, actually. I said 3, but I think I'm going to talk about 4. So another is the aunts. They wear like a khaki color, and they are in charge of teaching the handmaids and sort of controlling them and preparing them for their position. We have Marthas, too. We'll hear about Rita and Cora. They are Marthas, and the Marthas wear a dark green, and they are the servants. They are cleaning and cooking. And then we have the handmaids, and that is what Offred is. So the handmaids are crucial to this society because, as I said, there are fewer, has been a decrease in births. And so, although virtually powerless, the handmaids are at the center of society in Gilead. These are fertile women who could bear children, and they are forcibly recruited to try to bear children for the older commanders. All other positions, male and female, in the society revolve around the core mission of reproduction and the myriad aspects of repression considered necessary to enforce compliance and rebuild the white population, people of color having been relocated. So The Handmaid's Tale, the book, is Offred telling her story. And we will learn early in the book that she's describing her life in the Gilead regime, and she has recently come to her new home, which is her 3rd placement, and she arrived 5 weeks prior. So that is the background information that you need to know about the book. Now, as you can imagine, there is some difficult reading because of the nature of Offred's role in this society. And so I do want to give you a trigger warning right off the bat that we will have some really sorry, I was having a hard time spitting it out. So I wrote it up. So the trigger warning is that the work contains themes of sexual violence, rape, abuse, misogyny, religious extremism, oppression, forced pregnancy, and totalitarian control. It also includes depictions of physical and psychological trauma. And so I do want to let you know about that. I'll try to give you more specific trigger warnings as we read so that you can prepare yourself. Margaret Atwood is writing this book to warn folks of what could easily happen in her mind to our world. And so we have to remember that that's her intention. That's where she's coming from. She is trying to fight against oppression of women and people of color. And that's why she wrote this book. Okay, welcome to The Handmaid's Tale. Now you do need to read the first 40 pages for our first reading deadline.